Motivations with Glenn.
Good day, everyone. This is Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM, WBISLP, Winterville, Ayden, Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina. You are tuned into the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivations with Glenn and Jaqeuline Cullins Williams, my co-host. Our topic today is back to school safety. Before we get to that and introduce my co-host, I would like to offer my condolences to the Jackson family and to all the citizens and residents of Winterville, North Carolina, and to the municipal staff for the town of Winterville on the passing of His Honor, the former mayor of Winterville, Mayor Doug Allen Jackson, who passed away on the 19th, which it would have been, 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I'm thinking. Doug Allen Jackson, who previously served as mayor for Winterville and a longtime Greenville Police Department officer. His funeral was today that I attended at the Reedy Branch Free Will Baptist Church in Winterville, where he grew up just down the road. The funeral was held there at the Reedy Branch Free Will Baptist Church and interred at the same location. So our condolences from the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivations with Glenn, myself, Jaqeuline Cullins Williams, and Awesome Radio family. Our condolences, we offer our condolences to you. Jackie.
Dr. Glenn, we are glad to be here on today. I am Jaqeuline Cullins Williams, and we are talking today about school safety and also some tips to help you have and your kids have a very successful school year. So as we're on today, we hope that and pray that some of the things that we give to you, actually, as a matter of fact, we know that some of the things that we give to you are going to be helpful and useful with helping your kids be successful in this school year. And many places we know already that school is already started or else is getting ready to start. In different states, sometimes it starts a little different, or different parts of the country, the dates can start, but most kids are gearing up to start or they have already started school. And I know here in Pitt County, there's many of them that have started school already. So we want our kids and, parents to have a successful year. School is one of the things that we cannot avoid. We all had to go through it. And it's still a requirement, that kids go through some kind of schooling. Dr. Glenn, in some other countries that I read, they don't do it the same way. Some kids don't do the schooling the same way. And so, but majority do have kids in school where they have to, it's a requirement that they have to go to school. We get free education here. There's a lot of, some countries, they have to pay. They literally have to pay to send their kids to school. And so we want, to see, keep people have success, the parents and the children. It affects everybody. It affects everybody when kids have a bad school year.
And if I'm not mistaken, not only is it a requirement here in the United States, isn't it also a thing of legality? It's illegal for a parent to have their children refrain from going to attending school.
It definitely is. After a certain amount of days, and I'm not sure how many days it is. It might be like something like 14 to 17. I can't remember precisely, but the truant officer will get involved in that, and you'll have to go to court. you have to show up in court for not sending the child to school. So, we want the most successful for them to have a successful year and also be successful in being in school and in the classroom. So, our tips today are going to talk about school safeties and some tips that are going to help parents be able to be successful and some things, just some suggestions to help you along the way.
And before you do, you mentioned that the requirement of going to school is almost here, it's almost time. But just think about this. Yeah, it's almost time. Get back into school and do your 12 years. But just think beyond the 12 years. You complete your basic education at 12 years. You'll be a senior, graduating as a senior with your high school diploma. But if you take it a little further and extend your education 16 years, 18 years, whatever the case may be, it's probably 16 years you end up with a bachelor's degree, 17 years, maybe a master's or a doctorate or what have you. So just don't think about completing high school and it's all done. There's still education to be learned. So just grab what you can and take hold of it and run as far as you can run.
Definitely. And you want to encourage your kids. A lot of parents and things, they may not take the forethought about it. And I've literally heard Dr. Glenn parents say, well, I didn't get an education and I turned out just fine. Well, it may not be just fine for your kids. And everybody doesn't have the same story. You need to go. And I'm not saying that, that if you don't go to college that you won't be successful, because there are people that have businesses and things and they measure that as success. But certain jobs, they have requirements where you have to have education. You're just not going to be able to get it, and it's tougher. Sometimes you may have to, even starting your own business, you may have to work, for someone else and start your business as a side hustle on the side.
I'm glad you said that, Jackie, because when I counsel people, particularly our young adults, I like to include a couple of things. And one of the things is being successful. There's one thing being successful, but as you mentioned, there's some business owners, there's this, that, they think they're successful because they have a business. That doesn't make you successful. You might have a business, so you're probably doing well. That doesn't mean you're successful. Is that business successful? What your ultimate goal should be is looking beyond being successful. You can be successful. You have a thriving business. You have a nice home. You have plenty of vehicles. You have a nice financial account, savings accounts, checking account, whatever. You are successful. I want you to further think about being significant, because when you're significant, you have left a lasting impression on something, somebody, or someone. So, in addition to being successful, I want you to think about being significant. Also, before I give it back to Jackie, because you can be successful and be rich, but there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. And you might say, well, Dr. Glenn, what is the difference? Okay, say, for instance, a pro ball player, they're rich because they have $1 million contracts, endorsements, and things of that nature. They're rich, but the person that signs all those checks is wealthy because he has the means to sign all those checks, and that makes you wealthy. If you have the means to sign a lot of multi-million-dollar checks, you are wealthy, and that's the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Jackie?
Yes, and definitely, people, they often think about what's happening right now. They don't often, you know what you are, where you are today, but you don't know what tomorrow holds. And you could be a business owner and be on top today, and the next thing you know, your business has dried up and gone under. So that education is good. You may have to go back and work for somebody. I
That's
know
right.
people, they had to go back and work. They had a business and then they had to go back and work for somebody for a while and then start the business up again. So you need that education. Education is powerful and it's often tied to your increase. You notice, Dr. Glenn, that on every job, they always take you through training. That you're trained to learn something. They take you through training on the job before they set you on the job. Most jobs do. I mean, there's some that may not train you, but most jobs that I know, there's some kind of paperwork, training, or something new that you have to know So your knowledge is tied to your increase and it's tied to your prosperity.
That's right.
So it also is the same way with education. That knowledge can be tied to your increase.
Yeah, and just think about one step or one mistake. All of us are just one mistake of being away from being homeless, like some other people, or we could be one step away from being homeless, or losing our job, losing our sanity, and losing all our money. But we also could be one step from succeeding. So that one step is very important. Either you can take a step back or take a step forward, Jackie.
Definitely. So, things could change. Education is something that you'll always have, and it's something you'll always be able to fall back on. So, we want to encourage our kids to get it.
And as we go out to the first break, I also want to just say education never stops. You will always be a scholar, because a scholar is someone that continues to learn and someone that's constantly being educated. So keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivation with Glenn, 106.9 FM. Awesome radio.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
From the Pacific Justice Institute, this is The Legal Edge, defending your rights as a Christian, a parent, and a citizen. Here's Brad Dacus.
Pacific Justice Institute filed a lawsuit in Idaho against a school district that fired a bus driver simply for exercising his right to free speech. On his own time, this driver joined a community rallying support for a student who was banned from his own graduation for simply stating at a school assembly that there are only two genders. And for supporting the student, the bus driver was fired. Well, PJI is now representing both the bus driver and the student. Please pray for the First Amendment right of the bus driver and student to be upheld. Become a prayer warrior at pji.org.
PJI provides legal representation without charge. Get exclusive email updates by registering for the Legal Insider at pji.org.
WBIS LP Awesome Radio.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for keeping it locked right here to Awesome Radio, 106.9 FM. And please don't forget, we have various apps that you can utilize to listen to our station. We are on the Google Play, the App Store, Amazon Alexa, Roku TV. Of course, we're broadcasting Facebook Live, in addition to a broadcast over the airwaves on 106.9 FM. And after the broadcast, the various footage of the videos will be available on YouTube as well as Facebook. So I'm not going to delay anything. We have a lot of important points to get to. So I'm going to go back over to my co-host, Ms. Jaqeuline Cullins Williams.
Yes, one of the first tips that I want to give to parents, or we want to give to you on today, is to use a calendar. I know a lot of times people don't think about, using a calendar with their kids, but preparing them to go back to school, and also during the school year, to have a big calendar somewhere in the house, or a calendar even, on your refrigerator with magnets. It helps kids to see when school is going to start. It also, a lot of times schools, they often pass out calendars for, the year, and you could put those on the refrigerator. Then the kids, they can see when the holidays are coming. They can see when they're going to have half days. They'll be able to see what day it is. A lot of kids, they come to school, they have no clue what day it is. They don't have any clue about the date. And it also keeps kids mindful about what day, time, and keeping a conscious record about time. Kids don't always do that. They don't know. They think that, their sense of time is different than ours. They can think that they've got weeks and weeks when school starts the next day. So at least you'll be able to put on that calendar and show them, the start of day. And so they can start, looking at their own days, their own schedule, when Saturday is coming, when Sunday is coming, so they can keep track of things.
And Jackie, that brings a question to mind. Mm-hmm. Is there a specific or particular name for that big calendar that you can write on that usually goes on your wall? Is there a particular name for that particular calendar?
I don't know that there's a name for it, but I just know, that you can get them anywhere. And sometimes a lot of people at home have home offices. They'll have a desk calendar. A lot of times they have that for themselves, but they don't have it for the kids. They don't have it. If you got to keep track of things in your own life and keep things organized with a calendar, kids need to be learning that skill as well. They need to be having access to a calendar or a day planner or something that they keep their particular things in and their notes and things in.
And I know I have seen wall calendars now that you can easily attach to your wall, and you can utilize with a dry marker so you can make changes as necessary. So it won't be a permanent marker that will permanently leave a marker on the calendar. It'll be a dry erase marker, so you can always erase it and write over it and amend it to make your adjustments as necessary.
Definitely, the dry erase one is absolutely fabulous. You can, and some of them they even have them. You can write the date on it, but it also helps the kids to start learning organization. There's a lot of kids. That's the nature of a child. They lack organization. They lack being trained how to keep things neat and keep things together and looking out for things and keeping things in order. Very early they learn songs that give them the days of the week and the days of the month. And sometimes the only time they hear those things is outside of their home. They need to have that in home too. It's a great organization skill for the kids to keep them organized is by having a calendar there for them to access. Dr. Glenn?
I think that being the age, given what age they are, and if they are able to write different things, have them assist you in writing what their projects are and what things are coming up for themselves is embedded in their mind as you look at the calendar. Because, oh yeah, and I actually wrote that there, so now I remember, because they're the ones that wrote it there. So help them along. If they're a writing age where they're capable of writing, have them write as well. So that way they're looking at it and they can visually see it as well as remember writing it there.
Definitely. And the attitude, let me step to this before we can get in very deep. Your attitude towards school and the kids. What is the mindset that you have concerning sending your kids to school? Some people, they look at it like, oh, I'm just getting rid of these kids. I see a lot of memes on social media and different places that show certain things that say, that depict the kids being kicked out all the way to the school bus. Are you just happy to get rid of them? And so you show no interest. I'm just glad. I'll be glad when y'all go back to school. I remember hearing that growing up. Make sure that you're not just glad for them to go back, but participate and have a positive attitude. Your attitude affects the kids a lot. It really does, because if you're using it and looking at it like a punishment, can't wait to get you back out to school. That makes it sound like you're punishing the child by going to school. Who wants to go and be punished? Dr. Glenn?
But that's absolutely true, because you don't want to, like they say, when you're raising a child, try not to use any kind of anger towards them, because you don't want them to be raised up or grown up to be what's that word? So I'm tipping my tongue. Excuse me. I'm probably to be resentful.
Yes.
And things of that nature. So you don't want them to be resentful towards you. So do your best to not raise them in an angry type environment.
Definitely. And the Bible has a scripture for that. It says, and I didn't bring my book with the exact chapter and verse, but it says to fathers, provoke not your son to anger, provoke not your children to anger. So don't provoke them, don't make them so upset about things, and overly disciplining them and overly making everything a chore and into some type of restrictive bondage. School should be fun. Kids should there's some kids that absolutely love to go to school and they do well the whole time they're in school.
That's right.
But it's the image that the parents also give them and the attitude they have towards school.
And the word I was looking for was rebellious.
Rebellion. That's right. That's exactly what happens. Also, one of the things I want to say here is start a bedtime routines early. Don't wait until they get it, way down in the school year. Start right away. The first day of school, put them to bed early so they can get up early and get on time. Get that bedtime routine on. Make sure the kids know. You can also put that on the calendar. We're talking about putting up things that kids know that they will be able to have a consistency. A lot of times kids do better when they have a schedule than when they're just out here doing whatever. Kids, they're going to take advantage of whatever. They'll stay up as late as you let them. And, most of them won't say, I'm tired and I need to go to bed. They'll be up there until they fall asleep.
Until they pass out, is right.
That's right. So you have to set those boundaries.
Because children these days don't have to go through things like we went through. At 10 or 11 p.m., television went off. There was no TV until almost 6 a.m. in the morning, 5, maybe 6 o'clock in the morning. At 10 p.m., 11 p.m., you will hear the national anthem, followed by just a tone in the color bar on the TV screen. I forgot what they call that color bar on the TV network, but that's all you would see until 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And I think they're starting to start bringing that back. I heard that they bring it back. And in addition to the national anthem, they want to do a little prayer. And I forgot who the prayer is by, but it was an African-American lady from Maryland. I have to do a little bit more research on that and bring that forward to you on the next one of our other shows. But just think about that. Go to sleep. Put them electronics away. Because see, our children these days have too many electronics that they are playing around with. Too many electronic gadgets and games. So put them away and get to bed.
Definitely. And don't wait till, I hope already since school has started that parents started doing that at least 2 weeks ago. Start putting them to bed early and not just waiting till the day of school starts.
And parents used to be reminded back in the 70s and 80s. There used to be a short script that came on TV.
That's right.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
That's right. They used to ask you where your children are.
That's right.
And that's where parents need to know. They need to know where their children are, what they're doing, and make sure they're in bed getting their rest. Sometimes kids can be so cranky when they don't get their sleep, when you're dealing with them every day and they don't get enough rest. Imagine what the teacher has to go through when she's dealing with a cranky child. Dr. Glenn?
Matt, maybe they should bring that and make that away for, like, if you get out of your car, they're sending signals to your phone. You have just locked your car door. Did you check the back seat for your child? Keep it locked right here, ladies and gentlemen. 106.9 FM, Awesome Radio. Back in a moment.
This is Reggie Price, and I listen to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM.
Get ready for a day of celebration, empowerment, inspiration, motivation, food, fun, and music for all of our beautiful sisters. September 16th, Saturday at Keehan Auditorium, Tarboro, on the campus of Edgecombe Community College. The third annual Sisters Let's Give Them Something to Talk About Women's Empowerment. Doors open at 10 a.m. Festivities begin at 11 a.m. This is a ticketed event. Contact Jamila Robertson Johnson, the visionary of this event, 252-343-0191. Developing a sisterhood circle. This Women's Empowerment promises to be a day of candid conversations about overall mental health, to include managing stress, finding peace with chaos, balancing life and goals, avoiding and overcoming addictions to alcohol and drugs. Keynote speaker, the impressive award-winning Dr. Cheryl Palat Williamson. Musical performance by the sensational Sunshine Anderson. Sisters, let's give them something to talk about women's empowerment. Saturday, September 16th at Keehan Auditorium, Tarboro, on the campus of Edgecombe Community College. Doors open at 10 o'clock a.m. This is a ticketed event. Contact Jamila Robertson Johnson, the visionary of this event, 252-343-0191. 252-343-0191. Sisters, let's give them something to talk about women's empowerment.
We're back. You're listening to The Glenn Johnson Show. You can reach Glenn at glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for keeping it locked right here and tuned in to The Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn and my co-host, Miss Jaqeuline Cullins Williams. So without delay, we're going to get right back into it. This is our final 30 minutes of today's broadcast. So I'm going to go right back over to my co-host. She has some very important tips for our listening audience. Jackie?
Definitely. And I wanted to say one more thing about the bedtime. You can also, get the clock, or, most times, remember we used to have the old clock with the hands, and you can show them, when the little hand gets on the 9 and the long hand gets on the 12, it's time for you to go to bed. And if you do that every night, the kids will know it. It becomes easier because they know that at that time it's time to go to bed. This hand on that one or that hand on that, or teach them, even if you have a digital clock, how to see 9 o'clock or whatever, the bedtime, 8:30, or, start getting ready at 8:30 and bed at 9 o'clock. I know we used to have to go at 9 o'clock. So
Yeah.
that seems like a very good hour. I wanted to say.
Yeah, either you can look at them two hands on the clock, or you can look at this hand. That's going to go somewhere else if you don't get in that bed.
Get in that bed and lay down. That's how they used to say to us, get in that bed.
Yeah, get in that bed, lay down.
And go to sleep, as if it was that easy. So, but get them ready. Whatever your routine is just get in the routine and do it. I wanted to talk about too, back to school shopping. Go, and we talked about, and most of the kids probably already have their clothes already, and some are still buying or looking forward to things, or trying to purchase things for their kids. I wanted to say to you, with back to school shopping, make sure that you include the child. Your style and what the child might like may be two different things. At least let them have an input on what you're going to buy them for school, because kids feel better when they pick something out versus what their parents make them wear. And I remember being a kid, I never got the choice. I just had whatever they brought, I just had to wear it. And I had to wear it, even if I didn't like it, even if I thought it was ugly, I just had to wear it. And so, getting there and allowing them to have a voice in some of the clothes that they pick. Now, I'm not saying let the kids pick everything they want. That can't be so. But at least let them have an input, because they'll feel better when they have a voice about what they're going to put on. Dr. Glenn?
And that's why a couple of years ago, I was so concerned about looking into whatever happened to the CETA program. I think since then the names have changed, but the CETA program was an after-school program during the summertime where our children can get a job, work through the summer. That way they can save their money. They will have a means to purchase their own school supplies and material and clothing. Because I did that all through junior high school and high school. I bought my own clothes as a result of working the summer job program through CETA. And I was hoping the same thing. So we'll have to examine that a little further, perhaps bring that to the show one day. I think they changed the name from, I think it was Comprehensive Educational Training, Development Training or something. But anyway, I'll get all the appropriate names, get the current name, and bring that forward to you another day. But our children, if they're of age, need to work during the summer. They can save their money so they have to rely on their parents. And it makes it easier for the parents and the household if they can do things for themselves, because eventually that's what they're going to have to do, because they can buy things for themselves if they're in middle school or junior school, high school, or even high school. So let's get them started and acclimated on doing things for themselves. So we'll bring that forward to you another day. Jackie?
Dr. Glenn, I absolutely agree that kids should, those summer work programs that is training kids for a job, and also it prepares them for life, will help them to be able to buy their school clothes. In some other areas, I was a teen in my late teens in Louisiana, and they had it there. But it was not that type of program. The kids worked in the field. So that was the summer program. You worked in the field to get your money.
So it was a little different than rural.
It was a little different. It was hard work. It was out in the field, and you worked, and they paid you every Friday.
It was a little different than the rural country area, right?
Right.
But the other thing I want to make mention about that is this: having those programs available also helps out when your children become of age. I'll point out one thing that was institutional to me, or, when I became disabled as a result of my accident in 2010, I could no longer work, and I was permanently placed on Social Security disability. So when they had to determine what monthly figure I was due to get, they went all the way back to 1974. 1974 is when I first started working. That was through the summer job program. And that was my summer job program through CETA. They went all the way back there because I had the quarters in, and that made my monthly amount what it is today. That I won't get into with you, but they went all the way back to that time at my first job with CETA to calculate my earnings. Jackie.
Definitely. So there's some great benefits for that. And I hope they do have programs here in the
Yeah.
area that are doing summer job programs. And then we need that access.
Yeah, and I
Some
think they
parents
should.
might not know where it is, Dr. Glenn.
I know. Yeah, we have to look into this and bring forward the relative information to our listening audience.
Definitely. I want to say to you too, before school starts, to parents, make sure, especially when kids are going to a new school or you got those little kindergartners that are going to school for the first time, make sure that the school environment is familiar to them. Don't just show up on the first day and you've dropped the child off. They've never been there. They've not met anybody there, and you've just left them. You know, school starts at 7:30 and you're dropping them off on the curve and the child doesn't know where to go.
That's right.
Make sure they're familiar with the school before that day. Most schools have an open house. They have some type of something that you could go, and most of them are open a few weeks before summer starts. So you can get a chance to even meet the teacher and find out who it is. It's bad to just show the child that you're not interested. That's what that says. That says I'm not interested. I'm not interested in what goes on here. I'm just interested in dropping you off.
Yeah, because of obviously they're going to be seeing some of their fellow classmates, so they all know each other. They see each other around. They have a better communication between themselves versus the parents. So, like Jackie said, let's make sure our parents do their diligent things and get acclimated on, getting the proper things and, looking out for their children the correct way, not just dropping them off and just say, look, I got to get to work. But you want to make sure your child is safe inside that school and not running off somewhere or maybe somebody taking them away somewhere. Do you understand? Right, Jackie?
Definitely. But, Dr. Glenn, in that environment, it could be very chaotic those first days. And the kids, they have no clue. They're there just like, where do I belong? Because the parents might know where the teacher is, but they haven't taught the child or said anything to the child about where they should go.
Yeah, because some students can't wait to get there because they want to show off their new threads, their new clothes, because they know other students will be, oh, look at you. You first day of school clean.
Yes. I would use some of the dialect that they use. They use some different words now. They don't say clean anymore.
I didn't want to get carried away.
But anyhow, they do that, and they love to talk, so that's why make sure your child, you do the best you can. Everybody can't afford the name brand clothing.
That's right.
Everybody can't afford the high price things, but do the best you can with whatever you have. Make your child look good.
Like I knew one mom, and she said all her son would wear his Tommy Hilfiger stuff. So she bought him this and bought him that. And she said, now look, you go ask Tom Hilfiger to figure it out.
Definitely. And I'm going to tell you, Dr. Glenn, I didn't buy my kids all name brand stuff, things like that. I would buy them 10. I would rather buy you 10 of something than one expensive name brand. I made sure you had 10 instead of just one.
And that's a whole lot better.
Yeah. So I made sure they had plenty, but I was not stuck on name brand.
But I think that was the most appropriate thing that you could do. And I think by now they understand why you did that.
Definitely. And they will tell you that they were well taken care of, that they had the best of every that they needed.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. You are listening to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivation with Glenn and Jaqeuline Cullins Williams. Excuse me. If you have a comment or question, we'll be back after this break with our final 20 minutes. But the call-in number is 252-756-2008. I'll say it one more time. We'll be expecting your call. The call-in number is 252-756-2008. The Glenn Johnson Show, Awesome Radio. Back in a moment.
Keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show.
And now, Fastened Like Nails with Dr. Mark Hamby.
John ends his book in 1 John chapter 5 with this unlikely, unexpected phrase. Little children, keep yourself some idols. The end. It just ends like that. It's like, what? Where did that come from? That was Israel's main problem that they faced. They kept bringing new images for God They had their Baals, they had their Asherahs, they had their Molechs. They kept copying the images of the gods, the nations around them. They felt like they needed that of making all of these idols.
So you have a definition for idol.
I would say anything that takes the place of God.
Yeah. Anything that you put above God in your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone has their hearts. They have a void in their hearts, and everyone tries to fill it with something. And so our idolatry could be, food. Our idolatry could be television. Our idolatry could be overindulgent in media, dominate our lives. We got to watch news constantly. There's something that we're constantly trying to fill ourselves with. It could be sex. It could be drugs. It could be pornography. Yeah, that's a big one today. And that's what Israel's problem was. They had two things going in their lives. They had the word of God, the prophecies, and they had their idolatry. And so God is warning them, and they're saying like, wait, what do you mean that we're going to be judged? Because we're not doing anything wrong. They were complacent in the type of lifestyle that they were living. They just didn't see it as sin anymore.
You've been listening to an excerpt of Fastened Like Nails, a presentation of Lamplighter Ministries. To learn more about our family collection of rare books, dramatic audios, or guild programs, visit fastenedlikenails.net. That's fastenedlikenails.net.
Hi, I'm Pastor Jeffrey Cox, pastor of God's Way Church of God in Christ in Kinston, North Carolina, and I'm listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for keeping it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivation with Glenn and Jaqeuline Cullins Williams. Our topic is back to school safety. If you'd like to call in with a comment or question, please do so by calling 252-756-2008. We are down to our final 20 minutes of today's broadcast, so I'm not going to delay anything, but I would like to mention once more our condolences goes out to the Jackson family, to the town of Winterville, to the citizens of Winterville on the passing of former Mayor Doug Allen Jackson, who passed away 2 days ago at ECU Health Medical Center. He was a former police officer with the city of Greenville and served as mayor of Winterville for 24 years. His viewing and funeral service was at Reedy Branch Free Will Baptist Church at 11 a.m. this morning, followed by his interment at the same location. And I attended, and it was a remarkable scene. So I would just like to say to the honorable former mayor and to his family, our condolences. We offer our condolences from Awesome Radio. He is in eternal peace and eternal fellowship with God, and he shall die no more. Jackie.
Definitely, Dr. Glenn. Condolences to that family. We want to get back here to school safety and some successful school tips. I wanted to say here too, one of the things about safety is to make sure that if your child rides the bus or has to walk, that they are attached to a friend. That there are other kids that are out there that your child can walk with if they have to walk, because most neighborhoods have more than one child in it. And most often there are many kids at a bus stop. Make sure that you get your child out there at a time when there's other people going to be out there. I know personally, when I was taking care of my kids and my grandkids, if they had to go to the bus stop, I would be out there with them. So I would always be the parent that would be at the bus stop, to pick them up or to drop them off. And so I was always out there to make sure that all the kids were safe. So make sure that they have a go-to school friend, somebody that's at school, that goes to the same school, that they can walk home or almost home with, that live in the same neighborhood, and just kind of pair them together. Find a friend, make a friend, ask them to talk to other little kids there. And, what's that kid's name, and make sure that they paired and they're walking home with someone instead of being out on the streets alone. That's a very good safety tip for kids. Dr. Glenn?
And I was just checking something you said, have your child attach themselves with somebody. So when you mentioned the word attached, that made me think about, do they currently have seat belts on school buses? Because I know they used to didn't have it. and I just brought it up right here. It says the National Transportation Safety Board recommends that all states require school buses to have over the shoulder and lap seat belts for all passengers. There are just 8 states that require seat belts on school buses: New York, New Jersey, Arkansas, California, Florida, Louisiana, Nevada, and Texas. Those are the states that require the seat belts on the schools. Let me go further and see if I can bring up North Carolina. Let's see. Fewer than 1% of buses in North Carolina are equipped with seat belts. The North Carolina Department of Public Instruction initially tested the restraints on buses 13 years or older, or on buses 13 years ago, but offers school districts the chance to get lap and shoulder belts on new buses for the first time this year. That was back in 2016. I don't think I'm gonna have time to look this up further, but that's just some of the school bus things. I would, if you're a parent, check with your school district to see if seatbelts are on the buses. If your child has to take the bus to school, school bus that is. So do your diligent hands-on work and check with your district to see if that's available. Jackie.
Definitely. And I remember Dr. Glenn growing up north, and we would ride the school bus because I was raised up in Detroit. And I remember being on that bus, and it was always so much fun when that bus went over a bump and it threw you up in the air. And you had so much fun, with that. They're taking the fun out for safety, to make sure that the kids are safe. There are some places and some, depending on how big the particular bus are that they're driving. I've seen some in the child care arena here that do have the safety belts or the seat belts for the kids.
And speaking of safety, I do know this as if you ever look at a school bus and on the side of the bus, right below the windows, you'll see a strip. Behind that strip is a metal bar. There's one strip there, one in the center, and one below. But those are areas where first responders, if there was an emergency situation and somebody had to be extracted, those are the areas where they're authorized to cut. If they had to cut into the bus to remove somebody from the bus, that was had to be extricated. So those are what those lines represent. So I just wanted to mention that in case you didn't know.
We want to talk about backpack safety. Most of the kids have backpacks and they wear them or take them to school so that they can transport their items to school and, materials and things that they need. I wanted to say today to make sure that you do not write the child's name on the outside of the backpack. It needs to be on the inside so that if a stranger comes up to them, they're not able to call your child's name or identify your child's name from the outside of their backpack. That's where it can get tricky with kids when some stranger, calls out your name and says, I know you or I know your mom. It can be confusing for kids. So put it on the inside, and I know we like to identify our kids' things, but make sure that those things are hidden on the inside. Also, make sure that the backpack is not too heavy. I've seen little bitty fellow with big heavy backpack, and he's got all these things in there.
Like he was in a military kind of rucksack.
Yes, big heavy books. And I even myself remember being in high school and having all those heavy, history books and different things. They were so thick and the backpack was very heavy. That backpack should only be 10 to 20, no more than 10 to 20% of the child's weight.
Yeah, and that brings me to another question before we get down to our final 10 minutes. With the backpack situation and all the security concerns going on in the world today, is it a requirement or something to think about that maybe you should have your child backpack be clear, see-through, so that there's no mistaking what the item is inside the bag? Because I know a lot of schools have starting to use metal detectors or magnetometers, what they're actually called. So to avoid any confusion, should the backpack be clear or see-through?
That I don't think so, Dr. Glenn. I don't think that's a good idea. Everybody to be able to see what's in there. I mean, in places where schools are, where security or there could be, violence and those type of things, then, I could see the metal detectors, but I think it violates the child's privacy, especially when they're teenagers or in junior high school, that, to be able to look through those backpacks.
And that was the magic word you just said, teenager, underage. So yeah, there's a violation with there. So yeah, that now that you said that, you brought the age matter, the age concern. That is true. So I don't think that backpack should be clear see-through. So thank you for mentioning that.
Definitely. But just make sure that, they're not identifiable by the outside of their backpack, that their name is not on there, and on their clothes and stuff. Make sure it's on the inside instead of the outside. Some people, they like to put tape because a lot of the kids are wearing the same type of outfits or the same type of sweater or something. Make sure that you put it inside and not on the outside, so the child's name is not identifiable.
Yeah, because you don't want somebody to, hey, James. You be like, how you know my name? It's right there in your backpack. Keep it locked right here, ladies and gentlemen. 106.9 FM, Awesome Radio.
When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on adoption, visit adoptuskids.org. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for keeping it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn and Jaqeuline Cullins Williams. We have reached our final 10 minutes of today's broadcast. So without delay, I'm going to go right back over to my co-host, Ms. Jaqeuline Cullins Williams.
Definitely. And one of the last things I want to talk about, Dr. Glenn, is homework. Making sure that your kids have a space or a particular good space to do homework. A lot of times parents don't pay attention that the child is in the living room and the TV's on. They're doing homework supposedly while they're watching TV, or they can't pay attention to their homework because the television is on. So make sure that there's an appropriate and a designated space for kids to go and sit down and do their homework, even if it's at the kitchen table or, at the living room table or something. You have one of those little tables that they can sit at, but make sure the TV's not on. Because a lot of times they're paying attention more to the TV than they are to doing their homework, or they'll just skim through it very quickly because they want to be done and they want to watch TV.
Yeah, and I think with all the new technology and all the new electronic devices that our children are apt to utilize, they're now a parental feature on most desktop computers, whether it's a parental control, if I'm not mistaken. And that's something the parents should think about utilizing. It's a parental control to weed out certain things your children are able to go to and things that they're not able to go to. So think about that as a good tool to use to monitor what they're watching while they're on the internet.
Definitely, Dr. Glenn. And make sure those devices and things are put away, especially if those are the handheld and the phones and different things. Take those things and make sure that they're on the counter or someplace so that the kid is actually doing their homework and not paying attention to doing something else. Kids, they need supervision. The Bible says to train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. So a child has to be trained. They're not going to just pick up and do things on their own. It's something that you're going to have to do and remind them over and over and over again, because that's the nature of a child. They just don't stick to things, but you can be a part of that training process and make sure that they're trained and that you're repetitive with things over and over again. And I know parents hate to say it. Dr. Glenn, I used to hear these words. If I have to tell you one more time, how many times do I have to tell you this over and over again? You have to tell them over and over again. You have to keep reminding them. That's the nature of a child, is that they don't retain things all the time. And you could tell them 25 times, and the 26th time they'll forget it and not do it again.
That's
you
right.
got to do it and go over it. Being repetitive is what causes them to get it in their mind and get it clicked on and begin to operate in it naturally. Dr. Glenn?
Yeah, I do know what you said, because I do recall my mom saying that to me quite a few times. Do you have to take, don't you ever let me see you do that again? And when I did it again, that was the last time I did it. Believe me.
Sometimes they do need that little discipline to help them get it in their mind, because you having to keep telling them over and over again. And especially when it can be something that's dangerous or something that could cause them some harm or cost their life, then definitely. Now, they used to get us and it wasn't nothing of harm or to cost our life, but they just got sick of telling us. Didn't I tell you to clean that room? Didn't I tell you to pick up those clothes? Didn't I tell you to do this? Didn't I tell you to do that? And they would get us after 1 or 2 times. They didn't give us all these chances.
Yeah. And see, I think some children have it easy these days because, and I hate to put a negative light on children, but some children think that, well, you do this, you do that, I'll pick up the phone and dial 911. We didn't have that luxury of dialing 911 because, first of all, you ever tried to dial 911 on a rotary phone? If you had to dial it, by the time it take you the thing to get all the way back around to the 9, it's too late. But now you have to operate you have the opportunity to use a dial tone versus a rotary phone. And believe me, you didn't want to do the things you did today back when it was a rotary phone. Trust me. Lord save you.
Definitely. And let me tell you something. I want to say to parents, don't be afraid of that. Sometimes you may have to face something, but if you're standing in what is right and you're not abusing the child and you're disciplining them, then, them calling 911 is going to show up and show out. Now, you call 911, they investigate it, and they returned you to me. And now I'm going to take care of it even greater. Don't allow fear to keep you from doing your job as a parent. I've seen people do that as an excuse. Well, they're going to call somebody on me. Well, if you're standing in what's right and you're taking care of that child and doing what's right, no, it doesn't say you can't discipline your child. Don't beat them. Some of the stuff we went through were beating.
That's right. That's right.
We went through some abuse. That stuff was abuse, Dr. Glenn.
And I remember one, I think I'm still sore from it, and that was back in 1974. But Jackie, let's go to the other page. We got 4 minutes for the broadcast. I want to go back down to biking to school. I know a lot of our children do bike to school. I think it's on the second or third page. Biking to school.
Yes, I see it. Practice the bike routine to school before the first day. So make sure that the child wears a helmet. It is in the state of North Carolina, it is against the law for the child not to have a helmet. So even if they're biking to school, they have to wear a helmet and know appropriate hand signals.
Absolutely.
If the child bikes to school, there's not a lot of kids that do bike, but there are some that do bike to school, Dr. Glenn. Not a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I could say I've not seen one child pulling up on a bike because I think because the weather is so hot here and it's just not, as feasible, to be out in the hot weather on a bike.
And make sure they have reflective gear on, because although it might be sunny outside, you can hit one of those spots where it get turned dark just from the shade from the tree or building, and they might not be observable. So rather it's sunny outside and they're on a bike, please make sure they have on reflective gear in case they get into an area where it just happened to turn dark all of a sudden.
Respect all traffic lights and stop signs. That if they should be old enough to know these things.
Yeah.
And if they're not old enough to recognize those things, they're not old enough to be biking to school.
Because in the state of North Carolina, operating a bicycle is no different from operating a motor vehicle. In the state of North Carolina, operating a bicycle is the same as a motor vehicle.
They definitely need to learn how to ride on the right and go in the same direction as traffic. If it's too dangerous for them to be out there and they going with the flow of traffic, because I have seen kids going the opposite against the traffic because they felt like, even adults do it sometimes, but they need to be riding with traffic. And as Dr. Glenn said, a bike here in this state is considered the same rules as a car. It's the same punishment if you hit someone on a bike as it is. It's just like you hit another car. Dr. Glenn?
So at all costs, like I mentioned, we have 2 minutes to go. I just want to make a couple of quick, fast tips. And be sure they might have some kind of eyewear, because you don't want something to kick up off the road. Maybe there's a bicycle in front of them, or a vehicle, a car or truck in front of them, and their tires might kick up some debris into their eyes, like a rock or a pebble. And the last thing you want to do is have your child with his eye put out. So make sure they have on a helmet and some protective eyewear. Jackie, we have 1 minute for today's broadcast.
Definitely. We want to make sure that you're safe. We want you guys to have a very good school year with your kids, and that they have, we hope that these tips have helped you in some way. We hope that you've been encouraged by it, and that you'll take some of these tips and be able to add them in your own life. And so we're glad to see all of the kids back at school, and we want to see them have the very best school year possible, and that they continue to increase every year, that they do better every year. Keep working on it, parents. Keep pushing forward, and keep trying new things, and keep being successful with your kid. Be present. For the one thing that I want to say the most is be present with your child, because it's so important that they have your support, and that they know that you're there, and that they know that you want them to succeed as well as their teachers. Dr. Glenn?
That's right. And if you'd like to avail yourself to any information, I'll put my email address down here in the chat room. And it's glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com. I would be more than happy to forward these documents to you, because I think they have the utmost importance, since they're a matter of safety concerns. So please email me at glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com, as many of the listeners do. So my email is currently in the chat room if you can avail yourself to it. I want to thank everybody for listening in. This has been another episode or broadcast of the Glenn Johnson Show. Take care, everybody. God bless you all.
Changing the world, one grand.